This is my first recording using a new tool. We'll see how it works. This is the Genesis, call this an alpha of the Genesis of the gateway adopter concept. I'm trying to make a personalized story. This is not about how I implement gateway adopters, not about how I emulate them. It's not about other tools like Market Fit Fast or Hourglass Interview. Here are the outlines. I can get through the storyline on the right side in a little over 2.5 minutes. Basically, it does a hook at the beginning to talk about the impact, and then I talk about the details and then how I use the concept after that. So I will start probably at the top of the minute so I can easily figure out what I'm doing. Probably gonna emulate, we'll try to do the whole thing and see what happens. Ready, go. New breakthrough concepts have a really hard time getting actionable feedback from the market. It's not clear. The signals are messy and contradictory and confusing. In startups, they go out and they find people, and they typically love everything new. And larger orgs, they go talk to customers. They have lots of problems to solve, probably will solve it, but they don't actually give good insights. So, because it's messy, the reaction of teams is they just go ahead. We know, people don't, customers don't understand. So we're gonna go do it anyway. And this is largely why 90% of new projects fail. The root cause is when they're trying to break into a new market, they're talking to the wrong people. They're engaging the wrong people. They don't really acknowledge a couple of issues, the adoption curve and different perspectives. The first one is the adoption curve. They're often talking to early adopters who just give misleading information because they love new stuff. They love the technology. They give you feedback on execution that the teams love. And it seems actionable, but it doesn't address the value. The next is late adopters. When large companies are trying to get into new markets, they want to go back to the customers they know. And they just give as equally misleading information because they won't adopt it until it's been proven several times. And then oftentimes, when they just want to talk to people who will give them feedback, they're getting confusing information because the roles are different. They're often decision makers versus users versus developers versus implementers, and they just have completely different priorities. And so the noise is a mess. So you need a filter to make sure you increase the signal and decrease the noise. And so when I had a big new project and about office programmability, and we were going to unify the model that people could use to program in Office, we knew this was an issue. This was new. It was a breakthrough concept. AWS and Azure didn't exist. And so when we went forward, it was a totally new concept to use the cloud as the platform. We needed a way to filter the people who would be comfortable and really be the adopters of this new concept, and mostly filter out the majority, the maybe 80, 90% of the people who were going to give us bad information. So we went and we looked for a clinically significant profiling model that could actually ask a question, get an answer, and figure out where someone was on the profile and see if they were in the metaphorical chasm that bridges between new concept and the big market. We went out and did research and found out there wasn't such a thing. There were lots of anecdotal information, but there wasn't proof that, or a proven model to ask a question and confidently know who you were talking to and how they place themselves on the model. So we did that and we figured it out and we found the indicator and we used it across 6 different roles for the API, and we got a clear picture of what was compelling. And the first product team was launched by the vision from a planner who said, here's an issue and here's what's compelling and we can do it. They built the team, and when Satya took over as the new CEO, he determined it was the most strategically valuable API for the entire company, and partners judged it as the most valuable capability on the release by a big margin. It was the second most valuable new capability in Office for that release was very distant. And by creating something that was compelling in one release, we saved millions of dollars, 3 releases worth of Office compressed into one. And the VP of engineering, who said it would take 3 releases, we were able to actually get around that and do something people wanted. So the remainder of this story is how we develop the gateway adopter concept and what kind of impact it can have on a project. So at the time we started the new concept of a API for Office, I had about 15 years of experience doing new projects and new products, almost all V1. Sometimes online travel. I did golf tee times in the early 90s, hosted CRM in the late 90s, CRM and other apps and analytical apps in the early 2000s. So I had a lot of experience doing new concepts. I understood, because of research I'd done, adoption dynamics. I looked into adoption dynamics because of all these V1s and understood that there were psychographic indicators and filtering questions that you could get to understand how people think and reacted to new concepts. And I had seen and read about the Harvard grant study. I'd done grad student work on that, and the Gottman Institute's relationship work to understand how people were happy. So we started the project. We defined a goal that we needed to have 2 parts. We had to figure out the target persona, the people who are most likely to adopt the new concept, and what they valued, what they found was compelling enough to get them to do something new. Stop, change, do something different. So the challenges as a product manager were twofold. We had to define what was compelling. So I had a repeatable model, and that's another concept called market fit fast. But for the focus of this is we had to figure out who to engage and get a clear signal so the signal to noise ratio was good. And prove that would eventually get to the mass market by getting it proven as a compelling problem solution. We didn't want to talk to the entire market. We didn't want to talk to the middle of the market. We didn't want to talk to early adopters. We want to talk to the sliver that actually proves new concepts. So we didn't want to talk to people just because they would talk to us. We didn't want to talk to just a set of psychographics or just a set of demographics. We needed to find the clear indicators from the same type of people, the same psychographic, to understand what they considered valuable. What were their top goals? What were their roadblocks to their goals? And what solutions they had tried to make sure that the concepts we were putting forward were actually valuable. So we developed that predictive model. We did a plan that included fundamental research that had clinical indicators that we could use as filters to get rid of the 80+% of the people who were really going to give us misleading information. And again, use the Harvard grant study and Gottman concepts to build the plan and do the research. And we needed to do it in 2 steps. First, find out what the data model could be, so do qualitative information and then do a large data quant research. So we did that. The qual had hundreds of interviews, often dyads, CFOs and CTOs. We got them together and asked them how they did things, asked them what their goals were, what got in the way, what they did about it, and what they thought was compelling to help them address those big goals. We ended up with 3 different data models, and they were in competition with each other. So I needed to create a quant survey that could evaluate the confidence and predicted value of these 3 different models. So I ran around and got some money, was able to get it from marketing and sales, so they used the insight and did a complex design that used both two different kinds of quantitative models, Shapley value and Kano. And we put them together and built it out. I surveyed almost 1,400 decision makers about their top 3 projects. So I had about 4,000 projects worth of data and hundreds of thousands of data points, and did hardcore analysis. So we came out with a highly reliable, confident Q&A, question and answer predictive indicator. So we could ask and listen to answers and predict where they were on the curve. They had a unique combination of 3 things. What their goals, skills, and techniques were unique. Some groups had 1 or 2 of these traits, but only one small group had all 3 of these. And in an unexpected way, because we looked into the techniques, we found a really high value insight on how different the project management skill set was for this group and how they were able to do these high risk projects that turned nascent concepts in the front of the curve into a solution that helped them win their markets. So we applied it to the project. We understood what was compelling because we got into the right conversation with the right people. We knew what we didn't have to build for a V1. We knew what we needed to gold plate to be compelling, and we knew that for the things we did have to build, how not to overbuild them. So we just did enough. And that allowed us to get to market quickly. In a way, we also mitigated our top risk by creating advisory panels and getting continuous feedback from these panels across the different roles before we took big bets and made big decisions. So we've gone on since then to scale and refine the concepts and use it on at least 10 different projects, 15 different personas in enterprise and startup, where we're able to engage the people who are most likely to adopt, and then take what we learn from how they succeed and help teams emulate their best practices and mitigate their biggest risks before they make big bets. In doing so, we typically cut the time to market by 75% by combining some of these insights and making sure we focus on what's compelling for the people most likely to adopt.